Holy shit, look at your setup. No, man. My setup is nowhere near like that. How are you?
I I'm doing fantastic. I'm just going to adjust my gallery.
No worries. Is my audio okay?
Yeah.
Okay, because I have other mics, but I have like that broadcaster mic that like it was like the massive like earmuffs and then like the speaker that comes out to your mouth. And I'm just like, I look like such an idiot with it. Like, I don't want to look like an idiot today.
And how's my sound? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound perfect. Oh man, I love your setup so much.
The only thing I don't like about it is greetings and salutations. You are tuned in to Milkshake Scholar Season 2. I am your host, Randy Winston, and it is my honor. And I'm just going to say honor. Usually it's a privilege and an honor, but like literally an honor to have on one of my brothers, one of the first people that took me in when I came to New York City years ago. It feels like forever ago. My friend Paul Florez-Taylor, who's a writer, actually author, we're going to say author, auctioneer, and podcast host, among other things. Paul wears many hats, and we'll talk about some of that during this episode. This is also a very special episode because this will be the first time, well, actually, for many reasons. First, because Paul will be making a milkshake for the very first time. Second, because this is my first time doing it on camera. And this is the first episode where you will see us make a milkshake. So I'm really excited about it. Paul, welcome to the show.
I am so happy to be here. This is the perfect way to spend a Saturday morning.
Oh my goodness, Paul. What we're gonna do? We'll chop it up. But I know you have your ingredients out, and I have mine out. And the last thing I want to do is let that ice cream melt. So what we'll do is I'll walk you through how to do this, and we'll knock it out, and then we'll chop it up. I will say that this ice cream that I have is a PB Wins the Cup, and it's by Ample Hills, which is a local shop here in New York City, and they're amazing. I love Ample Hills, and I try to go there as often as I can. So that's what I will be using for my milkshake. What ice cream?
I don't even know what ice cream I got. I just went to the supermarket down the street and I think I got Haagen-Dazs vanilla.
Hey, listen, Paul, Haagen-Dazs is my beginning. That's the beginning for me. That's the beginning. You picked a perfect one.
I love that. Yeah, I was Googling last night how to make a milkshake, and it's surprisingly easy. And you told me that too. It's surprisingly easy. But before we got on, I cut up my strawberries. I put some vanilla on them and some sugar, and that's called macerating.
Yes.
Your berries. I didn't even know that term existed until like, I don't know, like 30 minutes ago. So now I'm just saying macerating everywhere.
I appreciate the level of detail you put into this prep because you actually reminded me that I needed to cut up my bananas because I was not going to chop it up. I was just going to toss it in. And I'm like, oh, you know what? This probably looks better for TV. So thank you, Paul. All right, here we go. So you have your blender. The first thing that I like to do is I like to take the entire pint of ice cream and put it into the blender. That's the first thing that I do. And I'll use a big, like a tablespoon to do it because sometimes you really got to get in there and get that ice cream out, unless you have an ice cream scoop. So we're going to do that first. And I'm going to try my best not to get this all over the floor.
Oh, I'm having such a hard time opening up the ice cream carton. There we go. How much ice cream should you put? Just a scoop?
Oh, Paul, I put the whole thing in there.
You put the whole thing?
Yeah.
This is how big my cup is, though, by the way. Because I don't even think I have a blender. I have a bullet.
Oh, guess what? My milkshake won't fit in the cup, the whole thing. So I just put what I can in there, and then the rest I just leave in the blender in case I want more.
Okay, but I'm going to put a healthy amount of ice cream in here.
Perfect.
Because I also don't eat much ice cream either.
Well, this is a good day to do it.
All right. Hmm.
Shout out
It's
to
delicious, man. And I got to tell you, I was tasting the strawberries as
yes.
I was stirring them with the sugar and the vanilla
Uh-huh.
as they were macerating. And it is delicious. Like, I want to
It is.
do this to all my berries going forward.
Paul, that's how I know we're brothers. The fact that you're eating the strawberries before you use them, that's right up my alley, you know?
So the macerating is just like the strawberries sitting in their own juices, right?
Right.
Is there anything else happening
So
there?
you
Because I've seen some recipes that say keep it out for 30 minutes to an hour, and then others that call for it to be overnight.
right. It depends on how much juice, how much syrup you want. You're pulling juice out of the strawberries. And what people end up doing is using that natural syrup for cheesecake, for toppings on ice cream. So I mean
Okay.
you literally picked the perfect thing to do.
Ah, right there. Whoa,
Perfect.
I dropped one.
All right. So once your ice cream is in the blender, you want to
Mhm.
add your strawberries, or in my case, my banana. So I'm gonna do that now.
Okay. I'm gonna put that in. Oh man, look at those juices.
Right?
It's so wow, that's gorgeous.
It's literally perfect.
So one of the things I've been doing for myself since quarantine started is giving myself the gift of learning how to cook. I've been
Yes.
doing that for a while,
I've been
but
watching that. I've been watching that.
it's horrible. My concierge have like come running up because the smoke alarm is coming, it's going off. And they're like, what's happening? What's happening? I'm like, dude, I'm just making like fajitas. like, and like it's awful. Like it's been such a journey, but what I love so much about learning how to cook and talking about it with people like you is there's so much TLC that goes into making a meal, even a milkshake.
That's
And I
true.
just love that communal aspect of it.
That's the best. That's the best. I must admit, people love food, and I love my milkshake. So that's what I'm here for.
I know you do.
Once you have your ice cream and your strawberries in there, the next thing you want to do is pour in the milk.
Okay. And is there how much milk would you recommend for something like this?
Oh yes, Paul, that's a great question. You want to use 1/4 or 2/3 of a cup.
Okay.
Whatever works
Okay.
for you.
I
1/4
think
or 2/3. And you know what? The reason why I love this question is because this really speaks to what kind of milkshake you like. If you like your milkshake really thick, you put in 1/4. If
okay.
you want it more on the smooth side, goes down easy, you might go with 2/3. I've been using 2/3 because I like a little bit more milk in mine sometimes, and today's one of those days. So
Okay. I want a thick milkshake today. So I'm gonna grab my measuring cup
okay,
and I'm gonna do 2/3, you said?
yep.
All right.
Oh no
All
no no!
right.
If you want yours thick, you want to do 1/4.
A quarter. Okay.
1/4.
Okay, actually, there we go. Boom. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I'm sorry. For those of us who are culinary or challenged on the culinary level, I'm like, yeah, more milk will make it thicker. No, it doesn't.
One thing, I'm saying this on camera, and I'll probably regret it later, but the one time I was making a milkshake and I forgot to put the top on. So I'm going to remind you as a way of reminding myself. Please put the top on.
No, well, first of all, I don't think I'll have that problem because I don't have a traditional blender. I just have the bullet. And so I have to screw it on if I want to turn it on.
There
But
you go.
that will happen. I forgot what I was doing. I think I was making pesto sauce in my old apartment and I had a traditional blender, but I didn't put that plastic circular thing that goes on the top and it just went like this green goo just went everywhere. It was horrible. My Pomeranians had a field day licking that off. And I was like, do not lick that.
Oh my goodness, Paul. So the next step is we're going to blend.
Ah! Sorry, it just
listen.
splattered everywhere. Dude, it just splattered all over my
That's going to be me when I'm trying to pour this into the cup. Don't worry.
Okay.
So the next step is we're going to blend, and this is really about preference. I like to. Oh, you got the cinnamon
Look at
toast.
that mess.
Look
But
at
look
that.
at that mess.
Oh no,
Look at
that's
this mess
perfect.
over
That's
there.
perfect.
Look at it.
You're
I
about
think
to
that's a good.
have a great milkshake experience. Those strawberries are really going to do it for you. So our next step is to blend, and you want to blend anywhere between 10 seconds to 20 seconds. It really depends on your machine and how thick you want it. So I like to do mine for about 20. And when I blend, I'm going to move the mic away from the blender because it's going to get very loud.
Okay, and here I have one question for you. Do I need to put ice in here?
So you don't have to put ice if you don't want to. If you want it to be a little like you want it cold, then
Yeah.
you can add some ice if you want to. I would say don't. I would say
Okay.
try it first, and if you think you want ice, you can add some ice to it.
Okay, great.
I'm going to move the mic away from me so that this blender doesn't go loud in the air.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna get ready to blend mine.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, let me know when you're ready, and we'll count. We'll do a countdown from 3, 2, 1, and then we'll do it.
Okay, I think I'm ready.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. And I think I'm there.
I think
How
so
you
too.
doing?
So I don't think some of the ice cream assimilated.
Oh, you know what, Paul? This is a great step. So you want to take a spoon
Uh-huh.
and you want to move. You just want to move the ice cream around a bit. That's what I'm about to do.
I cannot open this.
Yes.
Ah, there we go. Okay. All right, so you get a spoon and then you just move the ice cream around. Okay, got it.
Yes, because sometimes it's thick and it sticks, and you just need to move it around with that milk.
Yeah. All right, boom. Okay, now we're in business. And it's some of the strawberries too that didn't.
Oh yeah, those strawberries too.
Look how beautiful this is, by the way. Look
That
at
looks
that.
delicious.
Mmm. All right. The sample tastes good. Doesn't taste terrible.
Perfect.
I actually am going to add a little ice cube in there.
There you go. There you go. See that's I love what you're doing here. You're improvising.
Yeah, well, it's so funny. I had this part already ready to go, but I didn't know where the actual blender was until you're like, we're ready. So if you see the video, when you see the video, you're gonna see me running around being like, holy shit, do I have a blender? Am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, fuck, man, like where the fuck is this part? The most essential part. All right, I'm gonna go again.
That's gonna be so good.
I can't wait. And I got the cinnamon toast crunch when I was in the supermarket. I was like, how lovely would it be just to like sprinkle it on the top?
I must admit I've put that in my milkshake before.
Have you? I think that's where I got the idea from some of your past videos or just being your friend for like the last 8 years. Okay, I think I'm ready. I think that looks good. And it feels really cold.
Yum. All right, I'm gonna pour mine into my cup.
Okay. Then find a cup for me. There we go. Now, when you're making a milkshake, I'm curious, what do you think is the one ingredient you have to get right?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. So I think, I think we get so caught up in the ice cream that we forget about the milk.
Mm.
And I think for me, what I've learned going to different ice cream shops in New York City is that the milk is king or queen. I'm actually going to start saying queen. The milk is queen. And I'll tell you why. Because the ice cream can be amazing. Like literally, the ice cream can be amazing. But if the milk is not good, if it's spoiled, if it doesn't taste right, if it's just not like and I'll give you an example, then it won't work. So I'll give you an example. I went to Ample Hills once. Shout out to Ample Hills. And there was a woman behind the counter, and I didn't know what I wanted. And she was like, "Oh, why don't you try the King of Mangoes?" And I said, "Cool." So it's a mango ice cream. I believe it's dairy free. And she goes, "And you want," and I said, "What kind of milk should I have with it?" And she said, "You want to do it with coconut milk." And I got to tell you, I've since had that same milkshake with whole milk, and it does not taste the same. Milk has flavor, and that coconut milk goes perfect with that King of Mango. So milk is the key. Milk is the key.
I love coconut milk. I just discovered coconut milk probably in the last month, and I just downed it, the entire carton that I got from my local supermarket.
Isn't it great?
Oh my God, it's delicious. It's such a great way. I haven't even thought about incorporating it in a recipe yet. So thank you for that little advice.
All right, so, Paul, the moment of truth. You're going to play. Yeah, put that on there.
Do I put them on there? Okay. I was going to dunk them in, but I actually put them in.
Okay. You know what, Paul? The great thing about milkshakes is you can do it however you want to.
I love that. All right, I'm going to throw them in there. Boom. And I actually got a straw as well.
I love it.
Here. All right. All right, moment of truth.
Yep. All right, cheers.
Cheers. Oh my God, that's delicious.
Oh, that's so good.
I didn't think I could make something like this. And it was so easy.
Oh. How are those strawberries?
Oh my God, they're delicious.
Wow. That's amazing. Oh, the banana. So shout out to my dad, because my dad, when I was a kid, my dad would do peanut butter and banana sandwiches. My dad's from Bermuda, and he loved him some peanut butter and banana sandwiches. And that's where I got the idea from, to put the bananas in this PB Wins the Cup by Ample Hills. So shout out to Ample Hills. Shout out to Dad.
Is your dad a big milkshake guy?
No, he actually is not. But he will put bananas in his cereal, and he'll put bananas on a peanut butter sandwich. So shout out to Dad for that idea.
This is so refreshing. I'm so happy right now. Like, milkshakes just put like the biggest smile on people's faces.
Right? This is so good.
Oh my God. Man. Yeah. And the cinnamon toast crunched.
Yep.
It just gives that crunchy flavor.
You know what this reminds me of, Paul? This reminds me of this reminds me of Saturday cartoons.
Oh my God. What was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
Ooh, that's a great question. Let's see. So I loved watching The Tick.
Oh, I love The Tick.
Mainly because he was just an idiot. And Saturdays were just, I'm talking like an old man, but when I was a kid, Saturdays were my favorite. I hated weekdays, and Saturdays were my favorite. So being able to just unwind and turn my brain off watching The Tick was dope.
I love The Tick. You had the X-Men animated series. You had Spider-Man. You had Bobby's World. It was so
Paul.
Bobby's World.
I loved Bobby's World. I love Bobby's World, and I have 3 siblings: a twin sister, a little sister, and a younger brother. And we would all sit there and watch Bobby's World, and then during the commercials, we would do nuggies on each other.
You know what the funniest thing is, Randy? I always forget you're a twin. I always forget that.
It's one of those things that I don't talk about as often, because, and I know you don't do this, but when I meet people, they will do this a lot where they'll like, oh, do you guys think about the same things, or do you know when the other person's feeling? It's just annoying. So I usually don't bring it up this often. But you've actually met Yolanda. You met her at the MFA. It was an MFA reading or something. We were
Oh,
afterwards.
oh my God. Our MFA program feels like another life, especially after this year.
Right? It really does. You know what? This brings up this is a great bridge, because I want to talk about when we met, which was in the MFA program. And before we ended up working together, as you were transitioning out and I was transitioning into your position, because you were the MFA readings and events coordinator before me. We met in workshop, and literally there were maybe like 3 or 4 people in that workshop that I just clung to right away. Like they just like you guys kind of took me in, and you were one of those people. And I don't know, I just remember like moving to New York, being fresh in the city, and didn't know, I only knew 2 people. And it felt like they were in a different world because of the work that they were doing in their industry. And so I don't know, I just felt alone in a sense. And so meeting you and a few other people in that workshop really like kind of grounded me in a sense.
Well, I remember that workshop so well. It was Helen Schulman's workshop. Shout out to Helen.
Yeah.
And it was one of my favorite workshops because there was this real sense of community. It was my second year, it was your first year.
Yep.
And I remember when we got your pages, and you actually, I knew I was going to love you the second I read your pages, but you also had an illustration in there, a map of your of where your story took place. And I was just like, this is going to be my hashtag BFF. So I'm pretty sure it was me, Kyle Lucia Wu, and Robert Haller. I'm sorry, I'm like burping from the milkshake. Let me say that again. So it was me, Kyle Lucia Wu, and Robert Haller. And we were just like, we need to take this guy to Treehouse and have a really good time. And I think we went out to Treehouse. I'm forgetting what the moment was, but man, I have to tell you, you were so great, and you're such a talented writer, and I feel so lucky to just even be part of your sphere.
Thank you. I'm lucky that you took me in. I feel like family. I feel like family now. And shout out to your mom. I love your mom. And Jeff. Please tell Jeff I said hello. And I don't know. I feel like we've known each other forever.
And the Emma, I know the Emma. It's so funny because I graduated from my MFA program in 2015, and we're now in 2021. And that is such an important part of my history. And you are such an important part of my history. And this last year where I haven't been able to see you or say, hey, Randy, I'm in the neighborhood. Do you want to go to a random bar for happy hour and just sit and like talk? It's just been so hard, How would we know that a global pandemic was going to come and hit pause on life? You know what I mean? Like, I was in Ohio exactly a year ago today, and that was my last auction I did in real life. And I remember the contact came up to me after I did the auction. I was also emceeing, and she said something to the effect, "Oh, that was really good, all things considered." And I was like, what do you mean, all things considered? I was like, I gave you like an A+ performance, My God, I've never had a milkshake on camera, and I'm so burpy.
I'm enjoying
delicious. Because I actually downed it. I was like, oh yeah, I'll make it. I'll take a couple sips, ha ha ha. But I'm actually downing this bad boy. So after I did the performance, I was feeling really good. My contact was like, all things considered. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, the COVID-19. And I was like, what? And I obviously had heard about coronavirus because I was scheduled to do a gig in Italy, and it was canceled. I was supposed to be at the end of February, and it was canceled a week before I was supposed to take off. And I was like, oh, wow, it sounds like it's getting really bad over there. It's not going to get bad over here. And long and behold,
I cannot.
the next morning I got a call and it was like, yeah, we're going to put a pause on all your spring gigs for right
I
now.
cannot believe. I still can't believe it. Yeah, it's been a ride. You know, the one thing that I did, and we talked about this last year. The one thing that I did pick up again during the
Mhm.
pandemic is video games.
Oh
And
yeah.
one of the video games, and I reached out to you and I said, Paul, I just got my PS4. What should I get? And I remember one of the games you recommended and one of the games you had raved about in years past was the Spider-Man.
Oh my God. Isn't that such a great outlet? Especially during a pandemic where you're stuck in your very tiny apartment and you can just web sling through New York City.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. It was so much fun. And I'm trying my best, Paul, not to buy the new one until I have the PS5 because I want the whole experience. But I think I'm going to break at some point and get it.
I'm playing Miles Morales on the PS4
How do you like
because
it?
I love it so much. It's such a good story. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's so many different like looks for the characters. Um, the second you jump in, it's a really powerful story. And I don't know, are you a fan of Miles from the
Oh
comics?
yes. Oh yes.
I am. You are not going to be disappointed. And I do think this is Sony testing the waters for Miles Morales in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because there's no way with the rumors about what's going on with Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield returning that they're not going to do the Spider-Verse and they're not going to bring in Miles Morales. So I recommend it. I think the PS4, the graphics aren't as great, obviously, as a PS5, but the gameplay experience is still A plus.
Oh, I'm hyped. I'm ready to go. I might buy it next month. Um, all things considered, I need to be writing. Um,
I have been shopping around and I got a ton of rejections, but that's fine. It's part of the process. And I
yeah.
have a really great agent. Shout out to Rob Weisbach. And, before the pandemic, we were at Le Chateau Marmont in LA. I happened to be there for a gig, so we got lunch together. And we sat down and we had the best conversation about the memoir. So the memoir is called Flaco, and it's about me growing up in Miami as a first generation Cuban American and some of the familial trauma I inherited from my dad, who, when he was leaving Cuba, got lost at sea. And in order to sort of cope with what was going on around him, he starved himself.
Mm.
And so, as a result, I grew up watching my dad when he was facing huge hurdles in his life, starving himself. And I thought that's what men do. They just starve themselves if they want to be tough. And the memoir is an exploration of my own trauma and the trauma that I got from him, and sort of this perspective on Cuban machismo and toxic masculinity and how it influences other people and how awful it is to society and people like me who grow up questioning everything and themselves. So I had this wonderful conversation with Rob when we were there. And then of course the pandemic hit and I've sort of went back to the drawing board. And here's the thing, I took straw and I'm trying to spin gold here. Some of the feedback I got was, wow, this is actually a pretty good book. Not for us, but you know what? If it were a graphic novel, it would be really great. So, since I started an X-Men podcast a couple months ago, I've been plugged into this whole new community of cosplayers like Randy. Some of these cosplayers, they look better than like the Marvel movies. Like it's insane. But cosplayers, writers, and artists. So there's this one artist called Sergio Torres, and we just started talking about what it meant to be Hispanic in today's world and being gay as well. And I sent him some of my pages, and he was like, "Can I illustrate these?" And
Ooh.
so he did a couple pages, and I was like, you know what, I think this is pretty good. Let's do a couple more pages. And he's done a couple more pages. And we have about 30 pages right now. And I sent them off to my agent a week and a half ago. And I am waiting to hear back from Rob on it. You know, this is the
That's
excruciating part.
Yo, that's exciting.
So let's see where it's going to go. I think it's a different venue for my story, but I think it's only enhanced and enriched it. And of course, you have authors like Mira Jacobs who published, a wonderful memoir in that format. So I'm so excited. I can't wait to share them
Oh,
with other
that's exciting.
people.
I love graphic novels. And wow, that's amazing that you were able to connect with someone in that way, and that
Well,
they see your vision for your story. I think that's very important.
well, it's funny. He connected with those pages. I got a brain freeze. I'm sorry. I should have put that ice in there.
No worries.
He connected with those pages and he literally illustrated my thoughts. I couldn't believe it. Now it's a very different process from sitting down and writing literary prose to writing a comic book script
Mm,
and sort of doing call outs and attention to detail. It's funny because in Flackle, one of the big themes are bodies and the shape of bodies and how our bodies occupy space and move through space.
mhm.
But that wasn't a note I even thought to give Sergio.
Wow.
And he intuitively picked up on that.
Wow.
And it's incredible, but also like character designs, like in my head, a character has to look a certain way. And he obviously had a different interpretation of that. And that's fine. That's all like little stuff. But it's been the story is so different because of Sergio,
Right.
and I really am just so excited for it, and it's lit this new passion for the story.
That's exciting. Oh man, I'm excited now to see what it looks like. So we talked about X-Men and Spider-Man, and one of the most impressive things about Paul, for those folks that are watching, is Paul has a podcast called Power of X. And Paul, you actually bring on people who worked on the X-Men series back in the 90s. And I just, how? That's so that is so impressive. Talk to me about that, man. Like, oh, that's so cool. That's an iconic series. That's no small feat.
So I love sliding into people's DMs. That's it. I mean, or you just tweet at people. One of the things about starting a podcast, an X-Men podcast, has been so enlightening because so many people are willing to talk, and all you have to do is shoot them a tweet
Mm,
and slide into their DMs and just schedule a time. And that's born from this comic book culture that you mine talent from the fans.
mm,
The comic book industry is very different now because of Disney and Warner Brothers. They've sort of made these movies that have made the characters and these properties more mainstream. But back in the day, you did not have these movies, and so you would go to conventions and you could sit down with some of these creators and just talk to them, and they'll, if they liked you, they'd bring you aboard on the team, or if you were a reporter and you needed to ask questions, they do it right there on the spot. So I find with some of the more old school creators, they still have that mentality. So someone like Larry Houston, who was a series director, I literally just tweeted at him being like, I would love to have you on the podcast. And then he just DM'd me. And
wow.
then the showrunner, Eric Lewald, just published a book, X-Men, The Art and Making of the Animated Series.
Wait,
And
Paul.
yeah.
No, continue. I have another thing that I'm really excited about, but we'll get there. I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, no worries. So in that case, I just reached out to them on DM and they're like, oh, talk to our book publicist. And I used to work in book publishing. And I'm like, oh, give me that book publicist name. And it turned out I had a friend who worked at the publishing house. I'm forgetting the name of the publisher right now. It's one of the big ones, like Macmillan. And I was able to set up the interview. People are just so happy and willing to talk about the X-Men because these creators, they're literally coming from a place of love when they write and tell these stories, and they just want other fans to feel that as well.
Oh goodness, that's amazing. I do remember growing up, and that was something that me and my brother bonded over superheroes and the series, like the Batman series, the X-Men series, Superman. And then now all the Marvel shows and films, we will like text each other all day about that stuff. I was watching this YouTube video. It's a documentary on the Batman series. And I found it so fascinating how much work, well, no, I know that a lot of work goes into it, but I think about how connected those creators and the people that worked in those rooms were to the fans, and they understood what we wanted. And they're fighting the people in the bigwigs in the offices to make sure that the product speaks to what we like, the things that we like to see in those stories. And I thought that was fascinating. And when you think about stories like X-Men and Batman, the 90s cartoon series, they were way more like, they were ahead of their time, because they're talking about the depth of characters, and there was so much nuance in those stories. It wasn't just like someone's in trouble, go save them, the end. Like, no, these were like very intimate stories.
Yeah. So the curious thing about X-Men and Batman is that they were in production around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And Batman was sort of making waves within the industry that it was going to be a very serious show. They were going to invest in some really good animation, and they were going to do some quality storytelling with the idea that this series would be evergreen for Warner Brothers. So when they were pitching X-Men, when Eric Lewald was pitching the X-Men animated series, he was going into these meetings and he wanted to do a very similar thing with the X-Men. He wanted to tell really good stories. He actually did not know much about the X-Men going into these meetings, but he was going in there with Stan Lee. And you're talking about fighting with like these big execs about the stories and how the show should look. He was fighting Stan Lee. He had to tell Stan Lee no on some stuff.
Wow.
And he looked back on some of the other shows that had been made, and he was here like, there's some heart that's lacking here. There's no heart here. It's lacking. And what he wanted to do was tell character stories first. So if you look at the X-Men animated series, Magneto doesn't come in until the 3rd episode because they've taken the time to establish what is going on in the world of X-Men, that they're being persecuted, that the government is creating sentinels to hunt them down and imprison them. So when you get to Magneto and you see his extreme ideology, he may not be wrong in his approach. And
Right.
you have that pathos, you have that different view on the mutant cause and the politics of that world. So they were just absolutely genius. And they worked so hard to get that show off the ground, to have it the way it was supposed to. And another thing that they did that was unheard of at the time, especially for Saturday morning cartoons, is that they told an overarching story. So there is a beginning, middle, and end to the first season. And that was purposely done. And they had to fight for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm just
No. This is right up my alley. I love this.
It's Saturday morning, like 30 years later, and I'm still talking about the X-Men.
Let me tell me, do you have, I'm ashamed that I don't know this about you. Do you have a favorite? What's your favorite X-Men? I think I should wait. I don't want to guess and get it wrong.
No,
but
I want you to guess.
Storm.
Guess. I love Storm. Storm and Rogue were my gateway X-Men drugs. Like Storm, especially that 5-inch Toy Biz figure of her in the black costume with that bolt of lightning. I hunted that figure down. But my favorite X-Men is Jean Grey. And
yes, how did I forget?
And if you know the X-Men community.
I feel
Jean...
so bad that I don't remember that, because you've talked about this. Even when they cast a Jean Grey, you're like, I don't know.
You know what? I will proudly eat my milkshake / words on Sophie Turner. I don't think the movies with Sophie Turner were particularly good, but she was not a bad Jean Grey. If they were gonna bring her into the MCU movies, once they do the X-Men, I will be okay with that. But yeah, Jean Grey fans in the X-Men community have a reputation of being a little crazy.
And this is how I know that I should remember this, because in the back of my mind, I've logged and archived some of our conversations. You met the woman who played Jean Grey.
Oh, Famke, yes, I did. I was at Nobu in the financial district, and I was having a publishers meeting, and I'm like talking to someone, and literally I see this beautiful goddess walk in. So I'm like talking, you're the person I'm talking to. I'm like, yeah, I think this would be a really good. I was like, I'll be back. And I literally, as she's talking to like the maitre d', I like corner her. I'm like, hello, Jean Grey. My husband and I met talking about Jean Grey from the X-Men. Can I take a selfie with you? And she was so lovely. And she was here like, yeah, sure, of course. And she even like, told someone to like hang tight for a second. Let me talk to this crazy gay stan that just cornered me. And she was very lovely.
I love that. Such a New York story. Oh,
I know. And how pretentious is that? Oh, I was at Nobu and the actress who played Jean Grey walked in and I had to take a selfie with her.
Listen, we all have our stories, and I have some myself. But that is awesome. And I love her depiction of Jean Grey, which is why I haven't been like as eager to see Sophie Turner. And like you said, not to say that she doesn't do a good job. It's just I'm so stuck in that early 2000s.
Those movies were the first two movies were so great. X3 kind of went off the rails. X-Men First Class, which was the first in the reboot, was really well done. And then you got Days of Future Past, and that's where Famke Janssen comes in again as Jean Grey. But then they reboot with X-Men Apocalypse with Sophie Turner. And X-Men Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix are just such bad movies from just a scripting point. And I know there's some fans out there that love them, but it's not a jab at any of the actors or any of the writers. When you start looking behind the scenes on these movies, some of the times the scripts aren't even written until they do the actual scene. And I think it was January Jones who said that she didn't even have a script for X-Men First Class until she got onto the plane to go film. And she was playing the White Queen. I mean, that is a huge character, the huge character in the movie. So, you kind of see it. If you're a writer like we are, you're sort of sympathetic towards those plights, because sometimes you can write a really good chapter and it lands, and then other times you're racing to finish the next chapter and it is bad. So
I can talk about this all day. I do have one more question. I have many questions, but I like one more question about X-Men. Your thoughts on Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine, if Wolverine is indeed included in Marvel films moving forward?
Okay. So have you been watching WandaVision?
Oh yes, I finished yesterday morning. Oh,
I literally have been ugly crying for like the last 12 hours.
It's so good.
WandaVision is the first chapter in a much larger story where the multiverse is broken. So this story that we're seeing in WandaVision is going to continue on to Spider-Man 3. And in Spider-Man 3, presumably Spider-Man is going to confront the multiverse and other versions of himself, i.e. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. And then from there, the plot is supposed to get resolved in Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness. So the big rumor right now is that Doctor Strange is going to be opening up portals to other worlds, and we're going to get a world where Tom Cruise is Iron Man, because he may have been, in the running for a casting back in the day. Emily Blunt, who got the role of Black Widow but couldn't really commit to it, will probably show up as Black Widow. I mean, we all want her as Sue Storm, but that's a different conversation. And similarly, a world will open up and we will get the Fox X-Men, including Hugh Jackman, maybe Logan, that version of the character, Old Man Logan. So in that regard, yes, absolutely. I would love to see Hugh Jackman return. But, I want the X-Men to have a fresh reboot in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I want them to have their own story and new actors to play them. I think let's respect the legacy that came before it. And if you're going to do the multiverse, bring those characters in to say goodbye.
Yeah.
But let's move forward with new stories, especially since the Fox X-Men at the time, X-Men 1 and X-Men 2 were groundbreaking. The series never evolved past that. It didn't evolve with the genre. They sort of still stayed with like very drab outfits, very grandest stories. They didn't really embrace the superhero genre. And that's why the last movie, Dark Phoenix, didn't do so well, because Dark Phoenix is a huge cosmic story. It is the Infinity War of the X-Men. And they told it in one story, one movie, and there were no big epic costumes or battle scenes or alien races. There were no real like tangible stakes in it. So I would love, after watching WandaVision, I have the utmost confidence that they can do a character like Jean Grey and her ascension into Phoenix, and then the Dark Phoenix saga, they can do it correctly.
Oh my God.
Sorry. I'm sorry, I'm nerd talking.
No, this is like you like, this is my rabbit hole, is talking to you about this stuff. I'm just like, yes, more. I cannot wait for Spider-Man 3.
I'm so excited.
And
wait, I didn't ask you.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite X-Man? Who's your favorite X-Man?
So I remember originally it was Wolverine in the cartoons. And it was definitely Wolverine and Rogue.
Oh, I love Rogue.
But I think I warmed up to what's his name? I warmed up to Cyclops a little bit.
Cyclops is such a contentious figure. It's funny because a lot of stans love Cyclops. You've probably seen the meme, Cyclops was right. But a lot of people also don't like him. So I'm filming an episode in a couple of days, and it's called Cyclops Was Right. And we're going to go through why Cyclops was right about all his decisions in the comic books. And if any of your viewers read the comic books, he had to go through a lot in the last decade or so. So we're going to go through them.
I'm excited. It's just hard not to like those early characters, and even those first two films. I just thought they were all great, and you really understand why each character does what they do, and it's just hard to hate folks after a while. You just understand like their motivations and why. It's so intentional, and that's what I love about that series. Final thoughts. Your song, the song that plays during the opening credits of your biopic.
So it's Jumping Jack Flash by the Stones.
By the Stones.
I just love it. I grew up listening to the Rolling Stones because my dad was such a fan. But the things that my dad used to do on Saturday mornings, he'll turn on the TV to Fox Kids where, the X-Men were playing. He'd make waffles from scratch. And as he was cooking, he'd grab his guitar and he would just play music. And that's how he sort of woke us up. And so Painted Black by the Rolling Stones, lots of Beatles. But this one morning, and it was probably when the Phoenix Saga was airing, he started playing Jumping Jack Flash. And the lyrics just like spoke to me. I mean, in not a very literal sense, but just like the story of this underachiever and everything he's sort of been born into and his journey. And the way my dad sang it, and I'm jumping Jack Flash, it just, I don't know. It just sparked something in me. And I just got up and I just walked to the kitchen and and I just saw him playing on the guitar, and I was just mesmerized.
I love it. I love it.
And my memoir is about my dad. So there you go. I have daddy issues.
Full,
The whole spectrum of daddy
we've
issues.
come full circle. I love that. I love that. One of my favorite things about doing this series is hearing the songs that people pick, and also hearing why they pick those songs. It's just like another window into who my friends are. So I love that. I'm gonna play that as soon as we get off.
Are you a big Stones fan?
I have not taken in enough Rolling Stones. I have not. And funny enough, I know like the Grateful Dead, I also didn't listen to until I met Finn. And so a lot of the music that I listen to now is a byproduct of people that I meet. And so now I'm like, all right, Paul's been talking about the Stones. I gotta play some Stones. And usually, funny enough that you say for breakfast, usually what I do in the mornings when I make breakfast is I will either put on a podcast or I'll play some music. And I try to play music that I have not listened to before. Otherwise, I'm just going to put on Marvin Gaye. So I try to put on something new and play.
Ain't no mountain high. I'm sorry.
And I've been listening to the Watkins family. I'm probably saying that wrong because I have that Southern accent. So here we go. But that's what I've been listening to lately. So the Rolling Stones, I'm going to put that on. And that's not to say that I have not heard their hits, but as albums, I have not listened to. So I'm gonna do that. I'll be texting you about the Rolling Stones.
It's funny. I've never also noticed an accent when you talk, but as someone who's from Miami, and I work so hard in keeping my accent in line because
Right.
I can be a crazy Miami girl. You've probably seen it at Treehouse. My iPhone will be cracked, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, so supposedly I dropped this, and like, where are my jeans at?" Like, it's weird when you have a dialect from somewhere you come from, and I grew up with a very thick, Miami accent. Spanish was my first language. And when I moved here back in like 2006, no one understood what I was saying,
Wow.
and I had like so many of my, like, a lot of the expressions, like I didn't know. And so I would try to, say it. And I would say like overstay my welcome. I used to say, oh yeah, Phil, I don't want to overstate my welcome, and when chill, I used to say windshield. Like, so
I've done that with a lot of words, New York slang up here. I was called out in 2015 during after a reading that I did. It was in Times Square. I was at a art gallery, and I just finished doing a reading for Black History Month, and I step off the mic, and this guy walks up to me and he goes, "You're not from here, are you?" And I was like, "Oh, fuck." And he goes, "You're." I was like, "How'd you know?" And he was like, "You're from the South, aren't you? I can hear it in your voice." And I was like, "Damn it! I've been trying to hide this thing, but people hear it and they're just like, I know where you're from." I did that once to a woman in Prague. Here I go being pretentious. I was.
Oh, were you in Prague? In Prague for a reading?
I was touring a castle in the Czech Republic.
I was in Prague touring a castle. Okay.
I was touring a castle. It was so Game of Thronesy too, and this woman is talking, and like when you're in another country, of course you recognize English, but you also recognize the region. You really know the distinction between regions when you're in another country. So I hear this woman talking, and I immediately go, "She's from the South." So at the end of the tour, I walk up to her and try not to be a creep, and I go, "Excuse me, I couldn't help but notice your your voice. You're from the South in America, aren't you?" She goes, "Yes." And I was like, "North Carolina or Tennessee?" And she goes, "North Carolina." I was like, "No way." Yeah, crazy.
I love that. I want to turn the tables on you really quickly.
Do it.
You just said something really interesting to me. In 2015 for Black History Month, you were at an art gallery and you were reading. That was when you just moved to New York, right? You mustn't have been in New York for more than like 8, 9 months. What year did you
Yeah,
move to New
that
York?
was, oh man, because I moved in August of 2014. So it was
Yeah.
probably 7, 8 months. Yeah.
So what's it like being this displaced Southern boy coming to the big city and then giving a reading of your own writing for Black History Month at an art gallery? I mean, that's
Oh,
living the dream right there. That's why people move to New York.
yeah. I think moving here always felt right. And I think that has a lot to do with my mom, who's from Brooklyn, born and raised. And so growing up, that's all I heard. And then my aunt, who lived in Brooklyn when I was a kid, she would come down and bring things for us. And so that was almost like a goal that was in the back of my head. It was like, I gotta live in New York. I gotta live in New York. So moving here, it felt right, especially since I'm the only of like, I don't really have family here anymore. Everyone migrated to the South. Um, so being, like you said, being at a reading and I'm reading my work in New York, it felt right. It felt right, weirdly enough. Yeah, this thing has come full circle. So you're an auctioneer,
Yeah.
and we're in COVID, and you spoke about the when you were doing your last event before you found out that everything was being canceled. What's it been like trying to start doing those events again? Because I think I know you've been doing them virtual because seeing those flashy photos of you hanging out. What's that been like transitioning to doing those online?
It was heartbreaking at first because a lot of the organizations we work with have people who are in need. They have cancer, they have arthritis, they're looking to adopt, they're trying to save wolves. We work with a variety of organizations. And
I'm
I
gonna fix my
think,
video.
oh, I'm sorry,
Keep
can you hear
talking.
me?
Keep talking.
Okay. And I think when the pandemic hit, a lot of us just didn't really know how long it was going to last and what are we going to be doing. So figuring out that workflow was really interesting. But once we got it, it was great. And what we found doing virtual events is that it allows people who wouldn't be in the room actually making it into the virtual room. So you do an event, right? And you can only invite 200 people. But you're an organization like that has maybe thousands of people. So now you can send a Zoom link to all of these people. And
Yes.
so you go from having 200 people at your benefit to having 700 people at your benefit. And we have seen so much success. This one client I work with, I believe last year, and they were a smaller organization, right? They only made about like 100K. I'm just throwing a number out there, but they only made about 100K. This year, they made 400K on their virtual event.
Wow.
Like it's just boom. But, you
Wow.
know, how do I feel as an auctioneer? It's kind of like you're sitting here, you're in your Zoom mullet, right? So I have my velvet, I have my bow tie, and then I'm in my boxers underneath. And I'm just kind of gauging with the computer. I'm not actually getting the audience's reaction, which that's the fun part of being an auctioneer. Once you kind of get on stage, I always say it's a prepared nervousness you have going on stage. Like, I know what I'm doing, I'm good at what I do, but I want to make sure I'm raising money for this organization. So you get on stage, and once you kind of get over that hurdle and you start feeling the audience, it's kind of like a first date. You sit down, you're talking, and it goes really well. Or sometimes it's a little awkward, so you kind of have to like loosen them up. You don't get that when you're doing a virtual performance. So you're kind of just talking to yourself,
Yeah.
and it feels kind of weird. And then you also have to like see the numbers as they're coming in. So I'm like, okay, wait, I had to put on my glasses. All right. Oh, thank you so much, Robert, for $500 right there. Oh, Kelly, you're giving $300. Thank you so much. So in that way, it's been a different approach, but it is fun because you're like kind of doing like a game show host now. So now you're like coming in at $500. We have Robert. Thank you for that pledge, Robert. And it's almost like you're talking to a television screen, and it's really great. But I worry for the future because I really want to make sure these clients that we work with, these organizations that we work with, they have people who are very sick. There are people with cancer who, if they get COVID, it is a catastrophic situation. So I just want to make sure the vaccine rollout happens 100%. People who need it get it first. And when we return to events, that everything is safe.
Well, Paul, we did it.
Oh my God. I literally, like, look, here I am talking about starving myself in my memoir, and I just like chugged this entire milkshake because it was delicious. Thank you so much for having me, because I've never made a milkshake before, and it's so good.
You listen, you've treated me to wine and on so many occasions. The least I could do is do your first milkshake. Tell the people where they can find your stuff.
So I'm an auctioneer. I'm head auctioneer at Hunt Auctioneers, and we have some exciting projects coming down the line. So you can follow us at Hunt Auctioneers on Instagram. You can follow my personal Instagram, which is at Mr. Paul Florez-Taylor. If you really want to make someone's day, think of a cause that's really important to you and go to an organization that services that cause and donate to them. Because I'm telling you, there are people in need right now who even $1 will go such a long way. And then for the X-Men podcast, you can follow us at Power of X-Men on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And we're also on Apple, Spotify, Google, anywhere you listen to podcasts, we are there.
Boom. There it is, folks. Paul, thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for having me.